No greaves in a Roman legionary soldier of the imperial period. There had greaves earlier on,
yeah,
at least on
he's
one
right.
foot, on one leg.
He's right.
But by this time, there are no greaves at all there. And a manica, I guess, is the other thing you should mention. It seems to be later on that this arm guard is added to their right arm, maybe during the Dacian Wars as well with the phalanx, a bit of added protection, but we do know that manicas added later on.
Yeah.
I think I've gone through everything.
What is cool about the Latin word manica is that we still have the exact same word in modern Italian, pronounced exactly the same way, manica, and it just means sleeve. And it meant sleeve. It's just the same word. They didn't even bother to change it in 2,000 years, longer than that, in fact. So these are maniche in modern Italian. This is a manica. Kind of a cool little thing.
Is the armour of a Roman legionary soldier.
There you go.
Over to you.
Let's go.
Yes, so the Greek hoplites, obviously, they have very iconic armor, so it's very easy to sort of talk about it. This is the main item that I think is just widely recognized, the Corinthian helmet, right?
Yeah.
This gets introduced, or at least we first see it on vases, and then later we have loads and loads and loads of dedicated examples. So at Olympia, they have shelves and shelves of these, right? Wow. Corinthian-style helmets from the archaic period. The funny thing is that around the time we mostly talk about the Greeks, in the classical period, time of the Persian Wars and after, until the time of Alexander, these things they're still around. Some people might use them, but they've kind of gone out of style. So this kind of thing is an early form of armor, which is very comprehensive, as you can see. It covers the whole face with these long cheek plates. It's got the nose guard. It's got this, at the back, you can see it's got a sort of neck guard here as well that extends quite far down.
Yeah.
A little bit. It's kind of the same thing as the Roman helmet, just sort of less sticky outy, which is the technical term.
More similar to the previous Montefortino, which makes sense when it comes to the time scale a little more.
Yeah.
And then basically it covers the whole face, except for initially it doesn't even have ear holes. This one has a few sort of small sort of bits where you can see that the ears might have, so sound would have come in more easily. The idea is that this offers sort of fairly comprehensive protection, but it's often been argued that it's actually quite stifling, it's quite restricting. So you can't hear very much, you can't see very much, it's quite heavy. And you have to imagine that on top of this, they would usually have had a crest or even a double crest, so you'd have quite extensive decoration on top of this. It's made of bronze, not iron, which is one of the big differences between the two. Now, I think reenactors are not necessarily so convinced that this is so restrictive. Like they tend to think that there's, depending on the design, you can actually see and hear what you need to see and hear. But it certainly seems that this iconic shape, it just kind of didn't really stick around for more than a few centuries before other types started to overtake and started to become more common. So for instance, on this image, you actually have this guy wearing an Attic helmet. So this is a different style, which later becomes actually the Roman sort of typical Roman Republican helmet for officers.
It's kind of similar with the cheek pieces there.
Exactly.
You can see,
so it's got the cheek pieces, it's got a more articulated neck guard, it's got a bit of a sort of cap at the front.
In fact, the cheek pieces were so ubiquitous in the Mediterranean world that I have found some with my lead researcher, we were noticing that sometimes there are mentions among the Celtic and Germanic tribes mostly, that they would remove them. And there are a few, like imagine if they loot some helmets from Roman legionaries, some of them would detach them. And you're like, why would you do that? Because you lose the protection. We don't know. It's speculative. Maybe it's because they didn't think they really needed it. Maybe they were like, I don't need that. I'm good with my shield. Maybe. That could be like something, I can see a Germanic warrior thinking that way. The other possibility that was presented by another historian is that maybe they looked too distinctively Roman/Mediterranean to them. And so, imagine like if you're looting a uniform of your enemy, even from a modern perspective, you're going to remove the symbols. You don't want to be, and so maybe it's an interesting food for thought. I'm not saying that that's how it is, but it is possible. And they covered up the epic beards. I mean, true, but, the Greeks have some epic beards too, particularly the philosophers. So, there is that.
Still has a crest, but it's sort of a more complex design, but definitely more open-faced, lighter. It leaves more visibility, it leaves more room for the ears. And there are other designs that are even more open-faced, and in particular in the classical period, one helmet that seems to become really popular among the Greeks, so-called pilos helmet, based on a felt cap that may initially have been the cap you wore inside of a bigger helmet, but it becomes just made in bronze, and it's just a cone, it's just a sort of...
It's a conical one,
isn't it? It's just a cap, exactly. Yeah. And so it's very plain, it doesn't have the cheek guards, although sometimes it does. It doesn't have a neck guard, it's literally just a sort of cone that you put on your head. much in the style of like helmets that you might see in World War II or something like that, which is a very basic sort of cap that might protect all the important parts without trying to sort of encase you entirely in metal.
No, and also it's interesting. So this is the classic. When it's the Roman army is a professional army.
Yeah.
So yes, although there will be small differences in it, maybe with design and particular design styles, but in regards to the overall look and function, this is kind of a regular that you see for more than 100 years. And actually preceding it, you do have like the Montefortino helmet, which is all like, I'm not going to say it's exactly the same as the Pilos, but it's more kind of that idea.
It's just a cap, right? A bowl, like you put the
It's better than a Pilos in my opinion, because then again, you would add the cheek guard over here. You do have a little bit of protection in the neck. Did you know that early historians actually did it wrong? And they thought that this was the front, and they called it a cap, and they were wrong. This is the back, and then eventually they figured it out. But yeah, no, this is, I like the Montefortino helmet. It's called Montefortino because that's where it was found. What was it called in period? Man, I actually know, I knew the term for this one. I don't remember the exact term for this one in Latin. I used to know it. I'll have to ask my researchers, I forgot it. But it wasn't Montefortino, obviously, because that's just the name of the place where it was found in Italy. It's a nice little helmet, though.
On your head. There are a couple of bits sticking out, but otherwise it's very simple.
Yeah, and like earlier in the Mid-Republic as well, you have like more, chainmail is prominent, but also for those who couldn't afford chainmail when they have to buy their own armor, some of them have like a bronze pectoral in the middle, like the classic image of the Hastati soldiers.
Cardiophalanx are they can be a square, they can be rhomboid, and they can be circular, just protecting the heart.
Just like they have that one bit of bronze in the middle, just like aim here, please. Like don't aim here, which I find really, really interesting. And the shield I think is a bit bigger too. The eye, you mentioned that thing about the ears, which actually I forgot to mention about this one, which is really interesting. Talking to someone who was Leeds Armories about it, or an experimental archaeologist about it a couple of years ago, and he mentioned when talking about kind of the ears of here, how there's a bit more protection added at the sides, and yes, protection was one of the things. He also said it could be that it was to amplify sound. So if the battlefield is a very noisy place, people are dying, shouting, all that stuff, and that just helps amplify sound. Now I haven't
sounds made up to me, to be honest. Sometimes historians make stuff up. It doesn't happen a lot, but sometimes they do. I think there are some academics that overcomplicate stuff, but to me it's just protection. I could be wrong though. Maybe he's right. Who knows? Maybe he's right.
Tested it myself, so I can't say, but that's another reason. Visually, I have worn one of these helmets along with the segmentata and the caligae and everything. Like it does have that. You don't feel restricted at all.
Yeah, it's very open, right?
Yeah,
you can see what you need to see.
And I guess that kind of not having a nose piece at all, I think is kind of countered by having this rim at the front as well for overall slashing. Hopefully as well. Some people said the nose is obviously the most kind of, could potentially be the worst, the least protected part.
But it's a key difference. So the Corinthian helmet is made out of a single piece of bronze, right? So you have a plate of bronze, and by hammering it slowly into a shape, you essentially create this whole, everything about this, right? There are no parts added. I mean, sometimes there are some cases known with repairs, but otherwise this is just one piece of bronze. And so the difference with that helmet is that for all sorts of reasons, things have been added to the design, but they have actually been added. So you have a little piece where you can attach a crest, you have some hooks where you can sort of, you can wrap it up, you have the cheek pieces, you have the ear pieces, you have the neck guard, all of these things have been added, all these bits get added to it. In that sense, this is a much simpler thing to do, although it's much harder to make in the sense that you have to get it just right.